Kara, tell me about something weird.
I will. So this time we have the case of sudden nocturnal death syndrome among Hmong refugees following the Vietnam War. So sudden nocturnal death syndrome is not well understood. It's not known what causes it. One day its sufferers are fine. The next day they are dead due to having died during the night. It is associated with the hardening of certain tissues in the heart, although that isn't thought to be the actual cause, just something that accompanies it. And also in many cases with chest pains. So here's where it gets weird. In the 1970s, Hmong people in the US who were sort of fleeing war, and also Hmong people who were still in Laos dealing with civil war and guerrilla warfare and that kind of thing, were suffering from the syndrome at a very weirdly higher rate. And researchers started to take notice. So the sufferers themselves had this cultural belief that because they weren't able to worship properly in this new country, because they didn't have access to their shamans and their shrines and so forth, that the ancestors couldn't protect them from nocturnal evil spirits. And this was something that was sort of widespread among this population. And many of them experienced night terrors and sleep paralysis involving demonic creatures attacking them as they slept. And of course, many of them died, cause unknown. This would eventually become the inspiration for Wes Craven's Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah, I thought you'd like that last bit.
Yeah. That is weird. Night terror, sleep paralysis, man. I've had it like once, maybe twice, and it was absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
So terrifying.
I've had it a bunch of times, but because I have very just disturbed sleep in general. Also, sometimes I get it without the paralysis. So one time I had this like ghost in a red sweater standing over me, and I jumped out of bed and like attacked it, and my hands just sort of went through it, and it just kind of looked at me like, and then it just sort of faded away. And it's like, okay.
Well, maybe what I had was not sleep paralysis. Basically, I was asleep on the couch, and then I woke up, and I was wide awake, but I couldn't open my eyes, and I couldn't move. And I could hear everything that was going on. It was like I was buried alive or something.
No, that sounds like it. And it's not always accompanied with hallucinations or audio.
Oh, okay.
It can be audio or visual hallucinations.
Oh, yeah, that's terrifying.
And it can also not be those things. But it's basically just your body being like, because you have paralysis while you're asleep in order to keep you from hurting yourself while you're dreaming.
Right, yeah.
And then it just doesn't shut off quickly enough.
So,
but it doesn't kill people.
Right, you'd look like those kids on the VR who get startled and run into a door or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. Dreaming would be pretty like perilous if we didn't have that.
So, I've thought I've seen people through the corner of my eye or misjudge something as a figure or something like that. But when you're talking about like sleep paralysis, hallucinations, how real are?
Oh, they're extremely real. They're like you're seeing it in real life. So actually, I will say a lot of them, I used to have it more in my old house just because the way the smoke detector was, it made sort of this shimmery pattern on the closet. And that combined with sleep paralysis hallucinations, like those shimmery patterns would sort of form themselves into like these white sort of sepulchral, like pale green white figures that were glowing. So it was very ghostly, very freaky. And I will say a lot of they do have sort of this weird insubstantial quality to them, but no, they look completely real.
Yeah, freaky.
Yeah.
Okay, so all these people died, and it was kicked up after Vietnam. I can't help but to think that it was chemicals, warfare chemicals or something.
Maybe, but this is actually
EDT and Agent Orange, and wasn't that all Vietnam?
That is true. This didn't actually stop, though. This was just when they first sort of became aware of it. And they think it's genetic somehow because it's very pronounced specifically in Southeast Asian people. It rarely occurs in other groups.
What a crappy thing to have genetically connected.
Yeah, I know, right? Like,
at least you go in your sleep. That's good.
I mean, yeah, as ways to die, but then you consider that a lot of these people were having night terrors.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
maybe they
How good could it have been?
died of getting strangled to death by a ghost, or,
Right.
having a heart attack while they thought they were being strangled to death by a ghost.
Then I go back to my first one. What a crappy thing to have connected to your thing. I was thinking the other day that genetically I might have hip dysplasia, like a German Shepherd.
Oh no.
But, that would be a lot worse. That would be a lot worse.
Yeah. Yeah. So a couple hundred people died of this.
But. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. And a lot of horror movies are inspired from weird little articles. The Blob, probably most famously, that there actually was a blob. It never ate anybody. Really? Yeah, what? So it was a UFO sighting. There was like a UFO sighting, and then they found like in a field a giant pile of mucus, like blobby mucus stuff. But by the time like an hour or two with the sun up, it had burned off. And that was there was an article about it in the newspaper, and that's what kind of
did they ever figure out what it was?
Nope. No. Yeah.
That's gross and bad and weird. Yeah. I love it.